This is Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. I have a very special guest on the program today. I think you'll really enjoy. Bill MacFadyen is with me. Bill is the publisher and founder of NewsHawk here in Santa Barbara. He's a fascinating guy. He's built a great news business, and I think you'll really be interested in what he has to say. So stay tuned. Bill MacFadyen, The Good Life, is next. Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. So glad you joined us today. I have a special guest with me. Bill MacFadyen is with me. Bill is the founder and publisher of NewsHawk here in Santa Barbara, which is a wonderful news service. And Bill is the co-chairman of the brand new Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber of Commerce, board member at Partners in Education here locally, and the Westmont College Foundation, among others. NewsHawk is a 24/7 news organization that Bill founded several years ago that we're going to talk about. So welcome, Bill.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Tell me just real quick, just for people to get to know you, just a little bit about your story, where you grew up and your family and that sort of thing.
My family actually is from Malibu, and since the 40s, and but I grew up all over the country. I went to high school in Birmingham, Alabama. Came back to California to go to Pepperdine, left Pepperdine to finish up my college at University of Houston, got my start in newspapers in Houston, and then, but since I was a little kid, I've always wanted to live in Santa Barbara, and so when I was in Houston at the Houston Post, which at the time was the 23rd largest daily newspaper in the country, and today it's out of business, but as soon as I had access to their stationery, I was bombarding the daily paper in Santa Barbara, begging them to hire me, and eventually they relented and against their better judgment.
What paper was that?
The daily newspaper here.
Okay, and so that's where you went to. That's how you got here.
Yes, in 1987.
Wow. And was news journalism always where you wanted to go?
No, actually, my goal was to play center field for the Dodgers. But it became apparent to me in high school that probably the only way I was ever going to patrol center field was as a security guard. So I had to do something else. Couldn't do math. So that's really leaves about journalism is about the only thing left. So
why did you found NewsHawk?
That's a really good question. So I had been at the daily newspaper for 15 years, and that was my dream job. I was the front page editor, news editor, and over the course of that period of time, I recruited the ideal copy desk. I had just put the last person in place when the New York Times sold it to a local owner in 2000. Sorry, the years all run together unless you're talking about Dodgers baseball trivia from the 70s and 80s. Anyway, I stayed on about 9 months into the new ownership and then resigned. And then the next year started a weekly newspaper, the South Coast Beacon, which to this day people in Santa Barbara revere. It's not uncommon for people to talk about it to me, but never made a dime. That thing was a financial disaster. And we shut that down in 2004, and I was looking for other publishing opportunities in 2005 and then into 2006. And then mid-year in 2006, the daily newspaper imploded. It was a really dramatic story for Santa Barbara. And then about 6 weeks later, the KEYT had a significant downsizing. So in about a 2-month period, all of a sudden, Santa Barbarans had no place to go for mainstream, everyday local news. And I knew that people were online looking for that kind of information and not being able to find it. But I didn't know if advertisers and businesses were at that point yet. So I went back to some of the Beacon advertisers, and it turned out they were very interested in that. So I was able to, I put together a business plan, was able to convince several advertisers to commit to a year, and then a few of them to prepay for a year, and that's how I got the seed funding to start NewsHawk, and we launched in October of 2007.
Wow, so it's been coming up on 13 years.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And how's it going? I mean, how
piece of cake. Could not be easier.
You make it look so easy.
Yeah, it's so easy. It's been an interesting experience. It's the hardest I've ever worked. It's the most fun I've ever had, and the opportunity that we had. I mean, I got really lucky, and we hit the online world just at the right time. And so we rode that wave. You know, Santa Barbara had some unique circumstances that were in our favor with the daily newspaper's drama. And so, you know, if we were to start this in San Antonio, Texas, or you know, Des Moines, Iowa, I don't think we would have had the same good fortune. But because it was here, because I was known in the community, and because you know, Santa Barbara is really unique. And I know every community in the country says that, but Santa Barbara is really unique because, you know, we have original Presidio families still walking around, and we know who those people are. And so that insularity that we have is really, it speaks to the strength and character of our community. And if you understand how that works, it's a really great thing. And so we appreciate that, we understand how that works, and that really worked to our benefit because, you know, we're seen as an authentic local news organization. And the truth is our competitors leave the door wide open, so we just keep running through it.
Right.
But we hit break even fairly quickly, and then we've been mostly profitable, modestly profitable, almost our entire existence. There were a couple of months in 2009 when I didn't think we were going to make it, but that you know, righted itself. And then over the last 2.5 years, we've really just been on this upward trajectory. And then 2020, you know, we've been blessed because despite everything that's been going on, we're actually having our best year for traffic, our best year for revenue, our best year for sales that we've ever had. So it's been, we can't really complain. Drama and inconvenience are always good for Newshawk.
Right. Well,
So.
and people are at home,
That's true.
and people are looking for news
Right.
and information. So that's interesting. Let's talk about the news business for a minute. The current environment that we're in, it's very polarized. There's an election coming. The cable networks tend to be, you know, on one side or the other. It's the news. Obviously, news has changed. But one is, I'd like kind of your thought on characterizing the business as a whole, and then kind of what you want to be in the midst of that.
So the whole point of Newshawk really was to fill the void of local news in Santa Barbara and Goleta and really all of Santa Barbara County. In this day and age, there are a lot of news deserts. Santa Barbara County is not technically a news desert because we have 2 daily newspapers, we have a couple of weekly newspapers, we have 2 television stations, network television stations, and we have Newshawk and some other organizations. But there are pockets, San Ynez Valley, Lompoc, Guadalupe, areas that don't have day-to-day coverage. And then we have, vertically, we have topic areas that are simply not being covered. Business is not covered well in Santa Barbara County, and yet on the South Coast, we have a really you know, active, thriving business economy in most years. So there's all kinds of things that need to be done in Santa Barbara County, and that's what our focus is. For the networks, for cable news, for newspapers, if it happens outside Santa Barbara County borders, we're just not interested.
Yeah.
Because if you're interested in the presidential election, there are a million websites out there that have much better sources. They're actually with the candidates, you know, in normal times. They're covering them on a day-to-day basis. They know what's happening. So why would you go to Newshawk to find out about that? You can the internet is full of those sources. But if you want to find out what's going on in Santa Barbara County, you have to go to Newshawk. There's only one source, and it's us. And so that's what we want to be. The news industry has been interesting. When I got my start, and in the early days when I was on the copy desk at the Houston Post, you know, we kind of would think that it would be our children's children that would not be reading newspapers anymore. And, you know, fast forward, not even 15 years, it wasn't our children's children, it was ourselves. I mean,
Right.
I stopped reading a daily newspaper when I left the daily here. And so my children grew up never actually seeing me pick up a paper product.
Right.
You know, I was reading it on my computer, and so that just completely changed, you know, almost overnight. And you know, at the time NewsHawk started, I think the iPod had been around for maybe 5 or 6 years, and you know, now when you think of an iPod, you're thinking like, wow, that's old school. You know, who has those anymore?
Right.
So who knows what's going to happen 6 years from now? I
Right.
mean, you know, you're probably going to be reading a device that in direct sunlight, you know, on the beach with waves crashing about, and it's no big deal. I mean, who knows?
Right.
But we do know that local news is not very sexy. It's not. There's no. It's difficult to make a living at local news because it's a confined geographic area, probably a smaller population center. But for us, we think the possibilities are endless. It's an unlimited universe for us, and there's just so much for us to do.
Yeah.
I think Santa Barbara County, which has about 450,000 people in it, is probably at the top end of the ideal population center for us. I would never want to go to Los Angeles. That's just too big.
Yeah.
There's too much going on, but we can own Santa Barbara County, and that's what we're trying to do.
That's really interesting.
And I would also say that we, you know, having my failure experience with the South Coast Beacon, we don't look at ourselves as being in the news business. We're in the business of news, and we tell all of our employees that, you know, NewsHawk has to be profitable for us to grow. We can't. This is not a hobby. We have to make it. So everybody in our organization understands that they have to be entrepreneurial, and even our reporters, you know, they can't sell ads, but they help us sell ads by being accurate, thorough, fair in their reporting and getting the story and telling the truth as best they can, and that helps our sales side, you know, run the business.
Right. And what is your team 10 people? Is it 8?
We have 13 full-time employees now, which
Wow.
in the beginning days I couldn't even imagine that.
Right.
But we've actually hired 2 people this summer, one a reporter and one on the sales side, because the workload has just been so great.
Wow.
We had planned to do that later in the fourth quarter, but we had to accelerate that just because it was exhausting.
Wow. So 2020 for your organization, it's focused more eyeballs on NewsHawk. I mean,
Yes.
I mean, that's been one of the results.
It has, but really that's been the culmination of a process that in 2012 I took on 2 partners, Tom Bolton, who's our executive editor, and then Kim Clark, who is our business development vice president, and they now run their respective departments, and then and they're partners with me. We own 100% of the company, and then I work on the entrepreneurial side. And truthfully, I try to stay out of the way and
Yeah. Right.
you know, get to do stuff like this and
Yeah.
have lunch, but they do all the work. But once they came in and really started to focus on their things, and it wasn't just me doing everything, then the business really started to take off. It was immediate with news because Tom instituted, you know, we're heavy on breaking news, which is what people really need to know. If they hear a siren, they see smoke, they need to know right then, not 5 hours from now.
Right.
And so that really started to take off. And then Kim, we were doing pretty well, but it was just basically we were like locusts, and you know, there was no paperwork, and people would tell me stuff, and I'd make deals, and Kim brought some organization to that,
Yeah.
and enabled us to actually finally figure out, okay, what do we have, what do we don't have, what do we need, and how do we get it? So that really started to take off. And then in the summer of 2017, if you remember the Whittier fire, which burned Camp Whittier and Rancho Alegre up in the mountains, that's when NewsHawk exploded. That was, I think, on a July, it was a Saturday in July, right around noon when that fire happened, and it was touch and go for Goleta for a long while. But our traffic just exploded. Then, of course, that fall was the Thomas fire, that December, And then, just less than 3 weeks after that, Montecito happened. And then, interestingly, the cave fire, which was last November, I think, it started up on 154.
Oh, yeah.
And that became our all-time biggest story.
Really?
That fire, which amazingly burned not a single home, but it happened in just such a compressed time period, and it was visible the entire time to the community. And so that really exploded NewsHawk. And then the coronavirus hit in March, and then our traffic has just been sky high since then.
Wow.
And so
that November fire, I mean, my sense of that was it was because of what had just happened. There was a sense. It was,
yes.
I mean, wasn't that part of the dynamic?
Probably, and the fact that it was so visible from
visible.
The very start of it, you could almost see the flames within seconds of it starting, and then the wind was blowing. Right. Astonishingly, there were no injuries and no houses burned, and so but it evoked memories of the 1990 Painted Cave fire because it was essentially in the same area and threatening the same neighborhoods, and so that's still 30 years later still very fresh on people's minds.
Yeah. It's an interesting business that you guys are in. I mean, literally, so one day in July of whenever it was, you wake up like any other day, but for you guys, your life has changed. I mean, you can be thrust into a whole story world just like that any day. I mean, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
which around here seems like it happens a lot.
It does, and especially Montecito. I mean, Who knew this was such a sleepy little bedroom community? And my gosh, we have international disasters here on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But we're blessed with a really good team. We have a very experienced staff, and we do disasters really well. We've certainly had enough opportunity over the years, and but there's adrenaline. It's exciting. We feed on that, and the fact that we know that our readers, and we have constant feedback from our readers too, which is another cool thing about the internet. Every day is a conversation. Whereas in print, I could sell you a newspaper and you could read every word of it, or you could throw it in the trash and I would never know. But on NewsHawk, we know exactly what people are doing, and they're telling us what they want to read every minute of every hour of every day. Right. And it's almost too much information. But within that data are trends and things that are really important to us because they're important to our community. Yeah. And I think that's how we connect with a lot of people. Yeah.
What's the most common way people get your news?
Through the email. So we have 2 daily emails, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and people a lot of times treat that as a newspaper. Right. And they'll email us and say, I missed the city council story. Well, it's sitting on our website, but they're looking at it it's not in their email from that day. So we didn't cover it, but we did. It was just the day before. Right. But that's the website is obviously the whole package, and people are coming to that 2, 3, 4 times a day generally. But the email is where people, we see it in our traffic analytics, the spikes when people are opening that. And so there's that. And then,
how do people sign up for that?
It's right there on our website, subscribe. And
just subscribe.
Right, and it's free. It comes at 4:15 a.m. It's amazing how many people know that it comes at 4:15 a.m. because they sleep with their phones by their bed, and it dings when the email comes in. And the only reason I did that was back when I got the Wall Street Journal delivered, it came religiously at 4:30 a.m. And so I figured, well, I'll just beat the Wall Street Journal. You can read NewsHawk and then go out and get the paper and start your day. And so,
wow, so 4:15 in the morning and then the afternoon.
And then 4:15 p.m. We did that just because we figured that's about the time of day when people are starting to look for, they're watching the clock and they're thinking, what can I not do with my job? And so we can give them 45 minutes of stuff to goof off with, we'll do it.
Right, that's great. A couple of your involvements are interesting to me, and I was reading a little bit about this. the project you did, Prescription for Abuse, a 6-month NewsHawk team project which explored the misuse and abuse of prescription drugs in Santa Barbara County.
Right.
Can you tell us about that project and kind of what you learned?
That was a fascinating project. We were approached by the California Health Journalism Project, which is associated with the Annenberg School at USC, and they asked us to apply for a fellowship, and so we did, and we chose this topic just because we were getting a lot of, we were covering a lot of overdose deaths, and we had been tipped that there was a specific doctor in town who was overprescribing. Basically, you just tell him what you want and he would do it. And we couldn't really get anything on that, and so we felt like we needed some help, and we thought if we did this project with USC, with their resources, we could get some professional expertise to help us crack that case open. And so we, NewsHawk always bites off way more than we can chew. We're very ambitious, and that was definitely very ambitious, but we had it was led by our current managing editor, Gianna Magnoli, who was right out of school. Laura Cooper, who you may know, she's with Direct Relief. She's actually been involved with the Turner Foundation as a volunteer in the past. She lives on the west side. And a couple other folks, and they just dug into it. And what we found is that there was a lot of abuse, but the misuse was pervasive, in Santa Barbara County, just like it is anywhere else. That's not unique to us, but it brought home to us that this is a problem that affects every single family. Virtually everybody's been touched by it, and most of the time it starts innocently enough where there's an injury or something where those drugs are actually helping, but they're very addictive. And so it was just an awareness project. We've tried to go back and do something similar to do an update, because it's had its peaks and valleys since then, but it's on the upward trajectory again. And I know you had Joyce Dudley on here recently, and she was a huge help, and her office was a huge help in that project. And she was one of the ones who was able to put us in touch with the right people to explain the magnitude of it. Right. So
it's become a big problem.
It is, and I don't know what the solution is, because those drugs are actually very useful.
Right.
It's when they're abused or misused, that's when they become catastrophic.
That's interesting. You're a member of the Santa Barbara Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse's Fight Back Steering Committee. So you have a heart for people who are struggling with addiction.
Of course, yes, I would. That is true. I got involved with Fighting Back because that was our readers were really interested in that topic. Partly because of the Prescription for Abuse series that we did, but whenever we write about drug abuse or addiction issues, we get readership on that. And so I felt like if our readers are interested in that, then I can be a voice for their concerns and their issues in that organization. And so that's what I try to do. Same thing with Partners in Education. K-12 education is a huge topic for our readers. They devour that stuff. So if I can be involved and be a representative of them, I think that helps them, and it helps NewsHawk as we try to cover that issue, because we have a little bit more understanding of what we're facing. Right. And the Fighting Back does tremendous work. We're very involved, the organization's very involved with Cottage Health and the Bridge Clinic, which is a partnership with Cottage, Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinics, and to people who are coming into the emergency rooms, rather than treat them, release them, and then hope that they'll come back. They can actually go directly, be walked across the street into the Bridge Clinic and start to get supportive services immediately, which is what so many of those people need. Right. So it's
powerful.
And you know this from the Turner Foundation, but it's such a profound need in our community. Yeah. This is the greatest place to live, and you would think, well, we're not touched by any of that, and yet we are. Right. And it's pervasive.
Right. And so many of those, I mean, we're talking about prescription drugs, and then the other, I mean, it can be silent, invisible. And that's one of the things about, I think, the prescription drug, the opioid thing, that you're right, starts as a solution, and then it's not a solution anymore, but it's invisible.
Right.
And so it's so hard to, and so many people are suffering invisibly, which is what I think is one of the sad parts of it.
It really is sad.
And then you've been involved with my alma mater, Westmont College.
I love Westmont.
Yeah, so do I.
I know that.
Are you on the? You're on a foundation. Are you on the foundation board? Or
Yes, the foundation
Oh,
board.
you are. Okay.
Yeah, they would never let me as a trustee.
No, I don't know. Well, the Gail Levy will be here soon, so I'll ask her about that. Well, that's great. Well, hey, it's wonderful to meet you in person, to hear what you're doing. It's fantastic. I'm a NewsHawk fan, and
well, thank you.
So thanks for all you do for the community.
Thank you, and thank you to the Turner Foundation, because that's been a real blessing in this community, and I know it's broader than Santa Barbara, but it's glad that you're here too.
Thank you very much. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll see you next time.